Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabrina Kofer, and on behalf of Choice and ACRL, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, Institutional Goals, Library Solutions, which is sponsored by Gale, part of Cengage Group. This session is one in a series of sponsored webinars from Choice and ACRL that addresses new ideas and developments of interest to the academic library community. Now I'll just put a couple links in the chat for where you can register for upcoming webinars or watch previous webinar recordings. Before we get started, I'd like to point out just a few features of the webinar software. So all attendees are muted. All attendees who join the presentation are muted and your cameras are off, so don't worry about generating any noise or feedback. We've got that taken care of for you. In the main area of the screen, you can follow along with the presentation materials. To adjust the size of the slides or video, you can use the divider in the middle of the screen to slide the sizes to your liking. We are using the Q&A feature today. Please use it to ask questions of our speakers or to share any comments. We'll answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation, so please do type your questions into the Q&A module as they occur to you. You can also use the upvote feature to highlight questions you like or would like to be addressed. Also, there is closed captioning available for today's session. To toggle the automated captions on or off, please use the CC button on the bottom right corner of your screen. Last, please note that we are recording today's program and everyone who registered should receive a follow-up email with a link to the archive version. And with that, we're ready to get started, so I will hand it over to Kevin.
Thank you, Sabrina. And thank you everyone on the call for joining us for today's webinar. I'm very excited to have the panel here for the Institutional Goals Library Solutions program today. The session will be a panel discussion, and we'll be covering the ways that libraries are adapting their strategies to meet shifting institutional goals, and some of the ways that the panelists have partnered with Gale through some new programs we've developed, like Gale Accelerate, to meet those library needs in the face of shifting institutional goals. During the panel, we hope to provide some actionable advice that you can walk away from the webinar and use in your day-to-day work. So with that in mind, during the discussion, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. We'll be covering several topics during the webinar. So please feel free to enter any questions into the Q&A that are pertinent to the conversation. We'll try to answer as many of those live as we can, but if there are those that we can't cover, or if you have more general questions that aren't directly pertinent to what the discussion is at the time, we'll have a Q&A at the end of the session where we can address those questions. We're super excited about the opportunity to get to put some of our library partners on a pedestal and share some of the awesome work they're doing with all of you guys, and just really excited to have this opportunity to connect more broadly with the library community. So with that, we can get into introductions, and then we will get into the program of the panel and start the discussion. So with that, Lisa, do you want to start and introduce yourself, and we'll go from there?
Oh, hi, I'm Lisa Barricella. I am at Joyner Library at East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina. I'm the head of acquisitions, e-resources, and conservation. I've been in this role since about 2019, but I have been with ECU in the libraries since late 2002 in various positions and acquisitions leading up to this one.
Jeanne?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeanne Hoover. I'm also at East Carolina University, where I serve as the head of scholarly communication. I have been in this position since about 2015, 2016, and then I've been at ECU since 2010. And previously, I was in reference.
Maggie, do you want to go?
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Saponaro. I'm the Director of Collection Development Strategies for the University of Maryland, College Park. I've been in my current position since 2017, been at the university, though, since 2002. So So like Lisa, we've been at our institutions. My previous position at University of Maryland included working as a subject specialist for the College of Journalism, and prior to that for being involved in staff learning and development. And prior to that, I worked at other institutions, Northern Virginia Community College and also Virginia Tech.
And last but not least,
Hi, everyone. My name is Kapil Vasudev, and I work with Maggie at the University of Maryland, College Park, where I'm the Collection Development Strategies Librarian. I have been in that role and at College Park for about 2 years now, a little over. And before that, I was the Education Librarian at Ohio State University.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for being here, and we're excited to get into the panel. Also joining us today on the call is Ann Nagrant. She will be, she is one of our awesome trainers on our academic outreach and engagement team. She is our kind of internal expert on all things Gale support. If you've interacted with the support resources, you may have seen some of Ann's awesome work there. But she'll be here to answer any questions and kind of support as well. I know she has worked with the folks on the call and many of the things they'll be discussing today. So thank you, Anne, for joining us as well. And with that, we can progress on to the first big question of the day. Aligning institutional and library strategic missions beyond just the acquisition of content. Strategic missions seem to be more and more relevant at both the institutional level and the library level every year. With this question, I'd love to just kind of hear, I believe Maggie, you had some thoughts on this in terms of how you are adapting with your library's mission and what you're doing at the library to adapt to the changes of your institutional mission and kind of how those things have affected kind of your day-to-day and kind of how you're interacting and partnering with vendors or other people across campus.
So, hi everyone. So for a little bit of context, the University of Maryland College Park is part of the larger university system of Maryland, which is 11 institutions that are administratively separate. And this is something that certainly our friends at Gale understand, but we do have experience with other vendors who try to add in the other campuses or the other institutions when we are working with them, but we are administratively separate. So we have 11 or 12 colleges ranging from engineering and business all the way down to information studies, journalism, performing arts. So we have a wide range of disciplines that are covered. The institutional mission, Maryland's mission, is to provide excellent teaching and research for both undergraduates and graduate students. As a result, the library's mission is to support the research and teaching mission of the university. So our goals are to, again, cover all 200 programs that are offered by the university in one way or another. There's a subject liaison assigned for each program or unit, and there's also, the collections budget has been built around the fact that we need to support the entire research and teaching mission. So that is our focus. We are open to the public to come in as walk-in, but we are really our focus of the resources that we license and purchase and make available are those that support exactly what's going on campus. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Kapil, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that at UMD? Or
I mean, just to say that, in addition to what Maggie was talking about in terms of how the library is supporting this sort of overarching institutional mission, I mean, we've seen the library sort of expand in that way. So of course, we've done this through collections and through subject specialists who are assigned to the different areas. So maintaining those kind of close connections. But then also even thinking about kind of the other ways that we can reach students and reach faculty as well in terms of library skills. So, whether that's like first year seminar programs for getting new students onboarded with using the library and doing research skills, or of course, uh, professional development opportunities for faculty, even those who have been there for a long time, with using our resources, the things that we're able to acquire through vendors like Gale, and kind of making sure that they know what they're doing and how they can best integrate and implement those things into their courses and stuff like that. So it's not just something that's sitting there. So we're trying to, I guess, develop in a more proactive sense with those things beyond what we were kind of doing historically.
Totally. And then Jeannie, did you have something? It looked like, is there something to add there?
Yeah, I can share a little bit of information about ECU and how we at Joiner Library are meeting, our mission. Like Maggie said, we are part of a system. So we are part of the UNC system, which includes 16 different universities, and it also includes a residential high school. Our mission at ECU really focuses on 3 areas, and that is student success, public service, and regional transformation. I think some helpful context of where East Carolina is located is that we're in a very rural part of the state. We're on the eastern side of the state. So, we really value the regional transformation and giving back to the community that where we're located. And as far as our library connecting to the mission, we see ourselves as the intellectual heart of the university. And so we're focusing on, connecting students, faculty, staff, anybody on our campus and within the community to information, supporting lifelong learning, and also focusing on developing our collections and our services and our spaces to reflect the needs of our community. We just moved to a new strategic plan, so that is kind of exciting to see and how we're changing and reacting to that. So I think, we're still focusing on those 3 areas, but we've also added workforce success, rural health and well-being, and social and economic mobility. So the library is kind of coming in at all those different areas, and we have different goals and strategies to help with all those areas.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like the workforce success and those things kind of aligning to that regional goal and things like that. Are there any ways from UMD or ECU of you guys, talking about being part of these big systems, and having a big system goal? Is there, in areas where you guys have had challenges in terms of your discrete library goals, specific goals that you've had fitting into these big system goals, or things that you wanted to do that have been hard to overcome, or things that you would think would be relevant to folks on the call? Jeannie, did you want to start? Did you have?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I can say that we are lucky in that we have amazing collaborations with all the different libraries and institutions across the state. And so we're really dependent on that for, building our collections, sharing information. I don't think, as far as our mission goes, it is specific to ECU, but it ties back to the UNC system mission. So I don't know of the specific areas where we are not, fitting in with what the UNC system sees as a system as a whole, as far as supporting, students and student success. I don't know if maybe Lisa, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah. And I'm trying a different microphone because I got some comments that.
Yeah, I think that sounds better, Lisa.
That's better? Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
We will keep it with this one. I was just going to say that the strategic plan that we're on right now is really sort of a refresh from the 2017 to 2022 plan. And to be honest, they've pretty much kept the same mission priorities, reworded them slightly. What was interesting was that the previous iteration was very wordy. So there was 6 to 8 bullet points under each priority, and the new refresh is very concise. It's like very, very short, very concise, 3 bullet points, 1 sentence instead of paragraphs and sentences. And to be honest, it's actually, I think, easier now with it being less wordy to have the library be able to work in our own goals into that plan. It's easier, I think, to do it because it isn't so specific, and it's easier for us to make a case that what the library wants to do or what the library has been doing or what we intend to do fits this really just, concise goal, instead of trying to like, oh, there's all these words and there's all these examples and we have to kind of match these examples. So I think that the refresh has made it easier for the library to fit in.
Just like less room for interpretation, very kind of focused. That sounds that would be amazing. And Maggie, did you have something else that you wanted to comment? You look like
well, the only thing I wanted to mention is that in addition to the fact that we are part of a system-wide of the university system schools, we are automatically also a member of what we call the USMAI, which is the University System of Maryland and Affiliated Institutions Consortia, which is made up of the system schools as well as other institutions. And one of the things that in where we can take advantage of and do benefit from this group is we have shared resources, a certain core set of shared resources that are funded off the top by the University System of Maryland. And that takes a little bit of the pressure off of us in terms of having to balance our budget and add in, funds for, something like Academic Search Premier or a resource that all of the institutions, we don't have to deal with separate licenses and separate entities. Now we do, again, we still have the challenge of, no, we don't have the law school. No, we don't have the medical school, but here at College Park, but there are things that all of us share together. We also have a system-wide ILS, or all of the institutions share the same ILS. So which we just migrated to. So that's another way in which, working together, we take advantage of that as an institution.
Awesome. Anything else on kind of the institutional goals piece of things before we move on to I think we've kind of started, but the next one, next subject is adapting to change. So I think all of these things kind of roll into that, and so we can move on to that. And then I think we kind of started talking about this in the previous over the previous topic, but in the terms of institutional focus and mission in the past 2 to 3 years, I think a lot of things have changed with COVID and things like that. I know you've talked about kind of workforce development. Is there other things that you guys have not talked about yet that you are seeing as maybe things that are happening right now? I don't know what, new technologies, AI, all sorts of things seem to be changing. But in terms of kind of, I think you kind of talked about it a little bit, but what ways are you guys being proactive to adapt to those changes in institutional goals, or is there anything that you guys are doing?
Well, I could just jump in from the UMD perspective. I mean, of course, there's been a huge shift with COVID, but I think what it really did in a lot of ways was kind of accelerate trends and things that we were already seeing. Of course, the tighter budget, the need to really justify how we're using the budget, but also really pushing a lot of people, even people who were kind of reluctant, pushing them to online resources. So we saw just this sort of huge upswing in the usage of e-resources, especially like something like digitized primary sources, and a huge demand for those. So, I think that's been something that's been a big change because, of course, we were buying collections with the idea of supporting the teaching mission, but this was sort of a new kind of, development that kind of intensified in COVID when, people can't really travel to archives or take class visits to see stuff in person. So that was a big thing. I think the other big thing has been open access, which I think again, COVID played a role in kind of accelerating that trend. And I think this has been another area where we've been fortunate to be pretty proactive. A lot of the library leadership has been, and a lot of the library faculty as well, has been heavily involved with open access pushes on campus and engaged with those conversations. So beyond just, of course, the library's involvement with negotiating transformative agreements and licenses, we've also been sort of taking leadership of university, wide committees that have put together, the policies for how open access should be treated going forward by the university as a whole, how we should be kind of transitioning to that. And we were working on that sort of in advance of the more recent government mandate that things needed to be moved to open access with things with government funding. So from the Nelson memo. So I think yeah, that's been really good to see and be a part of, and good that the library's been kind of out on front, because I think that's an area where we certainly have a lot of expertise and kind of professional knowledge of it. So yeah.
Totally. You meant one thing you mentioned at the start is the need for new resources with COVID. And I think that kind of continues with more and more need for digital resources. Things like, digitized primary sources are there, I know it's not, they don't just budget, money doesn't just appear for those things. The funding is not always the easiest to get for new library resources and new items on the budget. Do you guys have anything, is there ideas or anything that you'd like to discuss or share of like how you guys have gone about, making the pitch and getting those things added that, maybe have been a stretch of things that you didn't have before, but now that you as a library really realize the need and the demand for these types of resources, can you share a little bit about how you've gone about collaborating or making sure those resources, those needs are met? And open that to anyone on the call, or not to put you on the spot.
Okay, well, I'm sort of jumping ahead by answering this now. I had sort of
That's
built
fine.
this in. I had sort of built this into a later question, but so we've been very fortunate for several years that campus regularly checks in on all of the departments and sees where people look like they're behind on spending and checks for who's going to spend, and will be very proactive in saying, well, if you're not going to spend it, we know the library is going to spend it. So we're just going to shift this money on over. And we've been very fortunate that the campus administration checks, sometimes mid-year, sometimes not till the end of the year, sometimes a couple of times throughout the year. And they'll be like, if we gave you X amount, how fast could you spend it? So, and then also our library director is very supportive of using other funding available to the library, endowments and those sorts of things, to buy resources that we need. So because of that, we have a committee called the Electronic Resources Review Committee, and it's made up of a bunch of different stakeholders from around the library, people in the reference department, special collections, our special libraries, those sort of things. And they all weigh in on, what are we going to do with our electronic resources? It could be renewal decisions, it could be cancellation decisions, but a big part of that job is we all get together and we're like, all right, we get to shop. If we get this amount of money, what do we want to have on the wish list? So then we maintain a very robust wish list, made up of vendors that have sent us offers, vendors that we know we can call up and say, hey, we'd like to buy this. And hey, can you give me that invoice in 3 days? And they're like, oh, absolutely. So because of that, we've been able to get a lot of one-time resources, end of year, mid-year. We typically do not like to use this found money for continuing resources, because that just builds up, that's propping up a model that isn't sustainable due to inflation. If campus isn't going to give us recurring money, hobbling it together with one-time money is just kicking the can down the road. So we really do focus in on buying one-time resources. And we have bought in the last 2 to 3 years from Gale and from another vendor, a wide variety of primary resource
Totally.
archive materials.
That's awesome. I love the way you describe that, the system that you have in terms of like, I know I'm sure this is established, you know, lots of really robust relationships established across campus to like maintain that, of having folks contact you and say, hey, and the trust to say, hey, we've got money and I know you're going to spend it in the right way. So you know, I'm sure there's plenty of people on the call that would love to have that scenario at their library, where, you know, people are letting them know, you know, here's some money, we've got it in the budget and we want you guys to shop for resources. I know you guys recently added on the Gale Accelerate program to add, you know, can you talk about kind of how you established that, how you got to that point? Did that electronic resources committee kind of predate the lot, you know, the getting that trust in terms of, you know, spending on one-time resources, or just kind of how you got to the point of being able to, you know, have that ability to spend on resources like you have?
So yeah, so as I said, we maintain that wish list every year, and our fiscal year runs July to June. So we start putting that wish list together, you know, September, October, and, you know, keep building it and building it and building it. And some stuff carries over from the previous year if we weren't able to buy it. And we had some members of the committee that had identified, you know, a handful of Gale resources that they wanted to have on the wish list. So then when the Accelerate offer came to us, and it was the ability to get a bunch of collections at a heavy discount, so we could, you know, almost double our buying power. We weren't going to be locked into, you know, we realized that we're fortunate that we get this one-time money from campus. We know that it could stop at any moment. We hold our breath every year. Are they going to give us it or not? So we know we're fortunate. You know, I'm not trying to like brag to any other library that isn't so fortunate. It could end at any time. So the fact that we weren't committed to year 2 and 3 if something should happen to the budget, because our ongoing subscriptions are going to trump anything else that we could buy one time when it comes to spending our acquisitions budget. So if we didn't get this one-time money, we're not going to be able to, you know, support a bunch of one-time resources when we can't keep our big deal journal packages turned on. So, so the flexibility of being able to drop if we needed to, the fact that if you guys released a new collection that fit our curriculum better, if in year 1 we identified a part 1 of a collection and then, you know, maybe it didn't do as well as we thought, we might not want to get that part 2 in year 2 or 3, and maybe we want something else. So all of that flexibility lets us have fun buying one-time resources and not be so scared that, you know, we're making a mistake going forward. We've got buying power, we can switch things, we have flexibility. And I will go down to my answer to that, so to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, and the fact that year 2 and 3 prices are locked in at the year 1 price is really good as well. So that if a price on a collection increases after we've put it on our identification, then we don't have to take that price hit.
Yeah. I think you've encapsulated, you know, the reasons we put together the Gale Accelerate program. So I thank you for that. And just to say, I would like to say, Lisa, it sounds like, you know, you guys are very fortunate to have that money, but you guys have done a lot of groundwork to ensure that your library, you know, is, you know, to have this committee and make sure things that you get, you know, it's beyond just luck. I do understand library funding and funding at these levels are a bit out of everyone's hands at some point. So I understand that, but not to take it all off of you. Maggie and Kapil, did you guys have any thoughts on that, of kind of how you guys have adapted in terms of ensuring that you're able to meet those one-time things? And with competing budgetary needs?
Well, I'll just say, I mean, our process is probably is at least somewhat similar to what Lisa describes, though perhaps not as robust. Though I think that is something that we're working on to develop a sort of more structured framework for that. I think historically and for a very long time, our budget for kind of these year-end one-time purchases has been relatively limited, but we have been able to at various points and to very significant extent at times been able to leverage uh, our I guess consortiums or consortial relationships that we've been in to sort of take advantage of it, because I think of course it's not just like ECU and University of Maryland that are seeing like an increased use of these digitized primary sources. It's kind of everybody. So uh, you know being in those consortiums where we can share knowledge and information and say, hey, we're seeing this trend, or you guys seeing this trend as well, has really been great, because then it kind of drove us to say, well, maybe we can as a group get some resources that maybe individually some of our members, including maybe the University of Maryland, couldn't necessarily afford on its own. So being able to leverage those partnerships has been humongous. But more recently, we were actually the beneficiary of like basically what Lisa described, some one-time funds from the university level, basically again to support this teaching and research mission. And so, of course, with that sort of one-time budget top off, the biggest thing we were looking to do was start checking things off the wish list, the types of really highly desired one-time items, one-time purchases that would really kind of meet areas that we were looking at, whether they're sort of new areas of academic interest, or there's just areas that we haven't been able to support as fully as we would like, given budgetary constraints and other priorities. So yeah, I think hopefully we've made the best use of that money and stuff, and so going forward, hopefully we'll be able to be the beneficiary of some similar largesse from the university.
I love it. Keep the momentum going. With that, I think we can move on to the next question. I think there's a couple things that we end up actually a question. Actually, there's one before we move on. There's one question related to budgets in the chat I can get over here. Is with multiple one-time purchases over the course of years, how do you manage absorbing annual hosting fees into your regular budget? There is one-time purchases, but they're not just one-time purchases always. There is some hosting fees. Do you guys have strategies for integrating that at the time of purchase, or how you guys are ongoing, how you're managing those things ongoing?
So yes, so again, not to sound like we're bragging, but we have used some of the one-time money that we have been granted, or or that the director makes available to us to do purchases of buyouts for so we will get a giant invoice for, here's your access fee buyout, and then we will never have to pay it again. So we pay a lot that year, and then it's not part of our budget in the future. And then there are some vendors with whom we have reached our cap, and we have bought enough over the years that we are such a good customer that they will not be charging us access fees in the future based on our previous purchase history. So those two strategies help tremendously. But yes, I'm not going to lie, we do weigh the annual, how much is that annual access fee going to be, and they vary in price. Some are small, some are larger, and that is part of the decision about whether to go forward. So will we be able to buy that out? Are we capped? Is this, a relatively small access fee? So those are parts of the decision making. But yes, it's definitely on our radar screen, because you just can't keep buying one times and then all of a sudden those annual fees of
suddenly become the price of a database.
Yeah. And Maggie, did you have anything?
It's very similar for us in cases where it's a consortial purchase. Sometimes the consortia is able to negotiate and cover those fees. We are actually, Kapil and I are working on doing a buyout on to some resources right now, so that will not be a continuing issue. But yeah, and again, just like Lisa said, in some cases we're fortunate in that we have purchased enough that we're capped, and we do rely on those things because, yeah, as Lisa alluded to, it does sort of eat away at your budget, and it's sort of a hidden cost that certainly subject specialists or, you know, the faculty, staff, and students we serve would have no idea that this is part of the, you know, the budget considerations, but they are things that we have to consider. And so I think, you know, very similar situation. We try to, you know, we definitely take it into account, especially when we're looking at desiderata items, is, you know, here's the current price, but what, you know, what is the tailing price?
Mm-hmm. Are there have things like Gale Accelerate or you know, larger purchases like that helped you guys manage those things, like getting things all at once and kind of understanding that? Is that helpful? I know, you know, we aligning things to your fiscal year, things like that can help. Or you know, are there strategies there that you guys have used?
I'll let Kapil answer this one because he just did the biggest purchase in the spring while I was out of the office. But again, it is, you know, thinking ahead and using those programs.
Yeah, I think I mean, there's not much more to say, but that was a big consideration where we were doing that. And yeah, I mean, thankfully we kind of instead of spreading out our money over a lot of vendors, I think we did decide to focus, really concentrate our spending on the specific vendors, because reaching certain limits then capped our hosting fees, and so it meant that we don't have to worry about those ongoing things. And I think, yeah, inevitably that becomes a big consideration. So I think, you know, vendors that we work with, including Gale, were really transparent about that, which was really a great assistance in making that, because, you know, it's not great to kind of you know, be surprised that you're going to get an ongoing
No,
bill or something, especially
not
when
at
you're sort of
all.
at that you know, end of the process, and you think that, you know, everything needs to be done is signed over.
Yeah,
But no, that was definitely a big consideration. And I think, yeah, our primary strategy was then to like really concentrate our spending in just a few buckets to maximize that, and really eliminate those annual fees.
for sure. Well, thank you guys for that question. And then I do want to, I think we had, there's some stuff, I want to get to our question on managing shifting research and instructional priorities. We can, I think, because we've covered a couple of things. So with this one, just to make sure we have times for questions at the end as well. So as you guys are, you know, approaching your institutional missions, I think we kind of alluded this to, you know, I think Maggie, you kind of mentioned, you know, departments not understanding hosting fees or students. And how are you guys, you know, Maggie, if you want to kick this off, of managing your departmental missions, managing departmental publishing. It sounds like everyone on the call is doing a lot of collaboration across campus. But Maggie, if you want to talk a little bit about how you've collaborated with other departments to support their missions and have them understand the restraints or what the library's mission is as well.
Sure, and I'll let Kapil jump in because we were tag teaming on a lot of the questions. I will say that we do have we work hard to make sure that our subject specialists get the information out to the various departments that they are liaisoning with, and also that we're receptive to requests for information from them. So I'll let Kapil talk a little bit about, you know, the ways we can do that through assessments and accreditations.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the big things like we're involved in regularly is collection assessments that we do for any college or department on campus that's considering or trying to propose a new degree program, you know, major, minor, graduate degree. anything like that. And this is a pretty regular thing at a university the size of Maryland. I think over the last about 4.5 years, we've conducted about 50 of those for I mean, entirely new programs by definition, and all the way up to the PhD level. And then that doesn't include, of course, accreditation reviews, so similar things. So this is sort of a built-in component of these process of getting these new programs and reaccreditation, is that the library has to conduct a collection review. These assessments are really helpful to us, both in terms of our future planning, because we kind of see what the trends are and we can start anticipating, the campus is starting to move in a new direction, or a new program is coming. So we need to start thinking about how can we better support that? Do we have, because the subject librarians are the subject experts who are carrying out the collection assessments, they could kind of directly communicate to us as well as our campus partners, yeah, the library does have what it needs to support this program, or if it doesn't, then these are the things that we can do to try to, supplement our ability or whatever to support those programs going forward. And I think, that's a really, keen insight that we can develop, beyond just talking to faculty and building those relationships. We have these sort of direct insights to where the campus is heading through these programs.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's kind of like goes hand in hand with the relationships of having that underlying data to kind of validate, give you some, something to talk about as you build those relationships. That sounds like some great info to have. And then,
Yeah.
Jeannie, did you have something? I think you also wanted, did you have anything you wanted to talk about in terms of what you're doing in terms of scholarly communication, both to assess and, communicate with what the resources you guys have?
Sure, I'd be happy to talk on that. So we also, have liaison librarians that go out and share information back with us, and then doing, assessments of what we have available for new classes and new programs. And then as far as scholarly communication, we have, I would say, our primary collaborations outside of my colleagues and other library departments and with our health sciences library is with the research and economic development and engagement division. And that one, our collaboration really focuses on faculty support. So a lot of training sessions on specifically our grant databases that we have, but also some data management tools and resources and other resources that we have available at our library. We also work heavily with the graduate school and honors college, and some of those are student trainings as well, kind of in the more ScholComm area. So maybe questions about publishing or copyright, and also our teaching and learning center. So we work pretty extensively with them. All of our trainings are usually scheduled through them. So we have a really great collaboration with them with like new faculty orientation, which is really important to share, what resources are available for new faculty, both for their own research and then of course for teaching. So that's sort of where we focus in on.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and your kind of final comment leads perfectly into the next question I have is, how do these things differ in terms of understanding, departmental priorities? Do they differ for both research and instruction? So as you are, aligning to those needs and looking for new resources, is there ways that are you having to meet with different people, or how are you managing both instructional needs and research needs? Jeannie, do you want to start? I'll go.
Sure, I can start with that. I think, we do talk to different stakeholders, to get information on what their needs are, and kind of look for resources that are out there that might fit that need. But then I think, we're also really constantly looking for and open to new tools and resources that are developed. So, a lot of that, getting it at conferences or talking to different vendors or reps on different tools that might be helpful to fit maybe a need that we haven't filled. So for example, the digital scholar lab that we just got access to through Gale, that one is fitting the need of our digital humanities researchers and students that want to do those kinds of projects, but we just did not have the type of software support and that type of thing to really help facilitate that. So I think that that software is really filling a need and making it easy for researchers and students to be able to do those types of analysis. So I think that's been really helpful.
And then did you, and from the UMD perspective, did you guys have anything on kind of the differences between research and instruction needs as you guys have adopted new resources?
I will say that for us, again, we do have to try to both manage the research and the teaching needs. So, data sets, streaming video, we're changing the way that we are answering needs. It's not just a print monograph anymore. It's being open to being able to support those resources that meet the needs from both sides. But one thing I do want to note, and Kapil can also add on to this, is that we also need to be cognizant of our bandwidth and what we're able to do. So with our staffing. And so we certainly listen to the requests of the administration, of the faculty, students, try to meet them as fast as we can with our budget constraints. But that is something that, for example, if it comes to a point where a resource is only going to be available with, we can't use a subscription agent and we have to, do title by title ourselves, management of the resource, that for us becomes a big consideration as we're moving forward. So we certainly welcome the feedback, and we do try to, again, through the subject specialists, meet the needs, through our suggestion form, through direct contact with the subject specialists. But we also have to be careful and understand our limits in terms of and what our bandwidth is and how we can address their needs and still stay sane, I think is the one way to put it.
Totally. I think I mentioned to you guys before we got on the call, because you guys have busy schedules. I've never met a librarian with just one job, so I understand that you guys everyone's wears multiple hats. With that, I think we can move into we've got some questions in the chat, so to give some time for people to have questions about what you guys have talked about, and give you some answers. And get some answers to those, so we can move into the question and answer portion. Jeannie, there's one for you. I think you may have seen this. Is you have been saying tools for data management tools. I think for managing scholarly communications. And is there anything? Can you mention specifically what tools?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we have. Trying to think of where to start with that. We have Open Science Framework. And so the reason why we have that is to allow for collaboration with different research groups across campus. It also fits the need as being a repository that is approved through NIH for their data management policies. We have access through collaboration with the UNC system, specifically Chapel Hill, for Dataverse. So we have a data repository. We teach faculty and even grad students how to use a DMP tool. So that one is free that we use. Trying to think of other ones that we have. We have press books that we also have in scholarly communication. So we have a lot of faculty that are interested in doing different types of publishing, open access publishing, also working with students to create projects. So we've recently gotten press books. We have a membership with the Open Education Network. And so there are some tools that the OEN has through that membership that we have access to. I hope that helps. If there's any other I'm happy to talk more about other tools.
Yeah. I think that was the question. If the person who asked had any other follow-up questions, feel free to answer it and put that in the chat. There's another one here. One, I think this one's a bit low. I don't know if you guys have any answers to how has the onset of AI affected your library? I don't know if it, I think it's affected everyone a little bit, but if you guys have any thoughts on that that you'd like to share?
I'll just start off very quickly to say that it seems like every week a new AI tool is being developed and released. And again, you know, the faculty, staff, and students of our institution are not, or possibly not, aware of the fact that, you know, to add on that AI tool, it is very likely going to be an additional subscription. And so that's one thing that we are actually starting to work with right now, is looking at what tools are out there and how can we stretch our budget to, you know, try, if not trial, but certainly, you know, work with one. But again, you know, if every single vendor creates a tool for their specific resource, that is something that's going to be a growing and a continual problem or issue that we're going to have to address. But we are seeing it start to happen. And you know, Kapil and I were, you know, talking about that earlier this week, and I went to a webinar earlier this week on such a tool, and it was like, that wasn't there last week. So
Oh man.
it is something that we definitely have to be aware of. And it is something that, with that extra subscription price, because you know, it has to be factored in for us, because with a flat budget, you know, something has to go. So we have to find out which one, if we were going to launch one, will have the biggest bang for the purchase of that resource.
Totally. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any one-time purchase AI resources just yet. I don't know if that will be a model they'll embrace. So there's another question here. I think this is a very when you have new resources, whether it's for researching or teaching, how are you communicating the availability to the resources? And are there things that you found that have been most effective, and are there things that haven't worked? Maggie, you're up if you have answered.
Well, I just want to say we do rely on our subject specialists. We also have, you know, certainly the library website, other tools such as that. We rely on our subject specialists to work directly with their units, particularly, you know, not every resource necessarily meets, you know, the teaching needs of, for example, chemistry or engineering, but the subject specialists for arts and humanities may target their faculty. We will give them updates throughout the year of what resources are available, how they can use it. And Kapil can talk a little bit about, in terms of taking advantage of, many of the vendors have been wonderful in terms of offering training, or being available to provide training assistance, and how well that can be utilized or not. So I'll let Kapil answer that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've always received, or we've received quite a bit of offers of training and stuff, but I think people have been more proactive in offering also other ways to help us kind of communicate with not just faculty, but even just our own internal library stakeholders, which has been really great. So like one thing, Gale did this for us, and we've seen it from a couple of other vendors more recently, was an audit of our database A to Z list, which was great because I mean, like in all of these audits, it identified resources that we had paid for, that we had access to, that were not in the A to Z list, or were not quite properly described, so that they weren't completely, you know, didn't have a comprehensive description. And, you know, for some of these things, you know, like I said, I've been here a little over 2 years. Some of these resources were purchased, you know, 5 years or 10 years or 15 years ago. So I wouldn't necessarily know, you know, without checking documentation directly, that this was something that we had access to. So those things, and then it's just also the language, you know, whether it's you know, with the marketing help and stuff, that can really help us make sure we're crafting an effective message to explain like what we've got and what's useful about it to the subject librarian, so that then they can further do that for the faculty and the students that they're serving. So we've been able to get a lot of assistance from vendors, because of course they know their products the best and know how to market it the best. So being able to lean on the expertise of our vendor partners, so that we can in turn, you know, make sure that as broad of a base of people on campus are aware of this product, and really have a quick and easy understanding of what it's going to do and what it can bring to them.
Totally. So, and yes, there's Anne is on the call. I think she helped you guys out with the A to Z list stuff. So thank you for shouting that out. We're very proud of the work that I know that whole team is super excited about the impact that has on resources. And Anne dropped in the chat, if there's anyone who is interested in that, Anne put in the chat the email address. You can email the outreach and engagement team, and they can help you guys help anyone set that up if you're interested.
Thank you, Kevin. That email address is gale.academicoutreach@cengage.com. And I am part of our academic outreach and engagement team. Kapil mentioned some of the different trainings that Gale as a vendor can offer. And so I just wanted to touch on that our team will work with your library to create a training plan that meets whatever format or goal that you like. This can include in person. More often it's going to be a webinar, but we have everything from shorter videos to, hour-long sessions. These can be workshops, they can be overviews. If you just want, a refresher of Gale resources and tools and features and the content that your library has invested in, we can provide those. More, something that's been trending in the past couple of years is to bring us in to do sessions that are specific to a particular audience that focuses only on one subject area. And you can bring in faculty. We'd be happy to, speak with faculty, even students, to help you out. So thank you, everybody. And I know we've worked with both of the libraries that are part of this panel. So thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Thank you so much. One more, there is another question here in the chat that we have is we kind of went over it to kind of get to the shifting instructional and research priorities, but in terms of workforce development, in terms of information literacy and data management, those types of skills that often the library is leaned on for development. Do you guys have thoughts of areas that are the highest priorities for libraries to address right now? Jeanne?
I'll jump in, and then if others want to. I will say that a lot of our collections already have some professional development pieces. So I think we have talked as a group sort of how to push those out more. So some of our resources have some practice tests, that students can take before they take, different exams to get their license, for example, in nursing or something like that. And then a lot of our focus lately has been on AI and working to make sure both, faculty and students are familiar with, how to use it, what are responsible ways of using it, how can we incorporate it into different things that we're doing. So I have a colleague that's looking at AI and OERs, and then another colleague that's looking at instruction AI. So I think we're kind of, focusing in a little bit on those pieces and making sure that, students, once they go out and graduate, that they're going to be able to, adapt to the changing workforce and adapt to the different, tools specifically. I guess I'm pulling tools again. Like the AI tools that they're going to be using, that they're familiar with them, and that they, even if it's something different, that they still have the skills to be able to apply it to something different and be successful at that.
Totally. Thank you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I think,
Oh,
Lisa, did you have something else? We're just at the last couple minutes here.
So.
I was just going to ask if any of you guys, if you had some final just words of advice from, it sounds, Lisa, you've, done a phenomenal job in terms of getting that and continual investment in the library. Just any suggestions you have for the folks on the calls for adapting to change at their institution?
I mean, one of the other things that's common with librarians, as well as having more than one job, is that we never lack for opportunities to do service positions. So at least if you're at an academic institution, there's no shortage of committees to serve on. And we have had different people over the years serve on, say, the overall university curriculum committee. So then that gives them a heads up on what some departments are thinking of doing with their major or required courses, or what transfer credits are going, so there's sort of university committees out there that are talking about student metrics that, you know, it's just a matter of either serving on it or just getting used to searching out those minutes and reading them and seeing what they're doing. It's just one more thing to put on your plate to take on a service work. But I know our colleagues that have done like curriculum committee work has found it to be very valuable.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think we're at the end. Maggie or Kapil, did you have any closing words that you wanted to offer? Anything?
I know we're past time, but just very briefly, we found at Maryland, and particularly with our recent ILS migration, that reaching out where you wouldn't necessarily expect, that, but we have reached out to other vendors, and they have had experience dealing with other institutions that have migrations, and we can lean on them for their experience. So it's not just us trying to figure everything out on our own. And so that is something that, you know, before this migration, I don't think we would have thought of it that way, that we would have looked to this vendor to give assistance with an ILS migration, because they're not the ILS, but they've lived through it with other institutions. So if there are, you know, or even if it's budget or questions to ask, you know, and see where people can help you and where vendors can kind of work with you on cases or situations.
Totally. Thank you. Like that. All right. With that, I will hand it back to you, Sabrina. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you all to thank you to the panel for sharing your insights. We really appreciate it, and thank you, Anne, for joining as well.
Yeah, I'll just echo Kevin and say thanks so much to Lisa, Jeanne, Maggie, Kapil for taking the time to speak with us today. And thank you to Kevin and Anne for helping moderate the session and the Q&A. And thank you to our attendees for your questions and your comments. I'd like to remind our viewers that we did record today's program, so be on the lookout for a follow-up email from Choice and ACRL with a link to the recording. Also, if you have a few minutes after the presentation to fill out a brief survey, we would really appreciate it. So thanks again to all of you out there for joining us. We hope you learned something new from the webinar and hope to see you again in the near future on another session.
Thanks.